Hi there and welcome to Lorena's Labyrinth today. If you're a returning visitor, as always, I want to say thank you for the ongoing support and the fact that you actually visit the channel. And even if you don't listen to all of the videos, it's very emotionally rewarding to me to know that people get value from the content that I provide. If you're new to the channel, I say welcome, thank you, hope you'll stick around. If you like the content, of course, doing a like and a subscribe is always appreciated, certainly from this perspective. So now with that out of the way, saying thank you and welcome, just an update or a little bit of an introduction on where this video is going today. Today we're going to be talking about the first part of using your crystals. It's the attunement process and it's the programming. In the last videos, we looked at buying and selection processes for crystals and some of the cautions and risks with buying online. What else can I say about this particular video? If you haven't watched these previous ones, I will put the links into the description here. Now, before I actually get into the content, there's two approaches to basically preparing your crystal for use. As I understand them, you might have different ways, and I welcome ideas, suggestions, and other people's methods. But either way, once you have attuned or gone through some kind of energy exercise with your crystal, you would then put it down, let it sit and rest until you actually feel drawn to using it. And this could be if you're programming it to a specific intention, and we'll talk about that later in the video. But you would just, leave it there, allow your intuition to guide you as to when it's then ready for use. So, cracking on with today's video. Now, when I talk about the attunement process, this is probably or potentially something that not all people are going to be comfortable with. And it's a technique and strategy that I learned from doing a crystal workshop. And prior to this, I used to just do the programming of the crystals, as you're going to see later on in the video. But when it comes to the attunement process, what we're doing is something that's probably more suitable to those people that are what we call metaphysical workers. They might use crystals in their healing treatments if they deliver healing treatments. They might, if they're like me, who use crystals for delivering messages as part of their psychic services. And I will use crystals for healing as well, by the way, for their healing properties that they're attributed to have. But basically, attuning to the keeper of the crystal is something, I guess you might say, in a way, the professionals do, or those of us, the other people that might do it are those of us that are a little bit obsessive about crystals, because I absolutely love them. Always have, actually. I particularly like the coloured ones. So anyway, going back to the keeper of the crystal, this definitely is about belief, comfort, your personal comfort, your faith. You know, not everybody is going to feel aligned to the idea of a keeper of the crystal. I certainly wasn't to begin with. And I'm always transparent about this, because I can imagine some people are sitting there, you know, when they hear me talking about these things, going like, is she completely insane? Don't worry. I thought that about people too at some point in time. It was like, are they really I was just thinking of a bit of a rude word. Let's say batty crazy came to mind. Yeah, I thought people were like that too until I started having my own experiences. Now, what can I say about this? To make it a little bit easier, when we're attuning to the keeper of the crystal, we are obviously talking about an energetic entity, but it's much the same way as if somebody came and visited my house. If I had somebody, I don't know what you call them in other parts of the world, but we call it a whippersnipper. And I thought I was going to start out this little metaphorical story, shall we say, by using something like a shovel, but a shovel doesn't require maintenance. I wanted to speak to something that you use, but there's a certain level of expertise involved. So I went for whippersnipper. You could do a Google of that. Basically, you use whippersnippers in Australia for trimming garden edges and stuff like that. Sorry, I had to pause recording for a moment because I got a big truck went past and I've got the front door open. Anyway, so let's say somebody delivers a whippersnipper to me and they bring it to the door. You know, we're talking about the whole human experience, and I say, thank you very much, you know, as it arrives. Thank you. Wow, you know, I'm so happy. Before you go, is there anything that I need to know about how to use this whippersnipper? How do I use it safely? Is there any strategy? Are there safety precautions? Can I be hurt using the whippersnipper, or can I hurt other people when I'm using it? And by the way, once I've used it, do I need to give it a rinse? Is there any strategy that I need to take on board for cleaning it after use? All of this kind of stuff, just the basics. And if we're talking about a whippersnipper, of course, the first thing that comes to mind, because actually I don't use them and I don't know how to use them, which is a fair call. What I do know is somebody had said to me many years ago, if you're going to use it, you've got to make sure that you don't bang it up against the fence or the curb, because if you do, it's going to take you more time. You're going to have to keep replacing the wire, and it's going to cost you money for the wires, not to mention the time spent wasted where you're rewiring it and that. And the other thing is, yeah, don't throw it on the ground because you might break it. So these are the kinds of things when we're talking about with a crystal, we're going to the expertise on how to maintain, use, and care for the crystal itself, because the crystal is a tool, if you like. And when we're connecting and attuning to the crystal keeper, we're building a relationship that's founded on gratitude and respect. Now, as with anything, we can make this whole process as easy or difficult as we like. Now, I do recall hearing many years ago that the only limitations that are upon us from a universal and energetic perspective are those ones that we put on ourselves. That divine energy is unlimited, and it's universal. And so I take the approach that if somebody says to me that can't happen, or it's not true, or it can't be done, I automatically now and reflexively go, well, why not? Why can't it be done? And if that can't be done, then how can we do it? Okay. So I'm one of these that look for understanding the hows and the whys. Now, I hope with the previous slide that I've outlined that the role of the crystal keeper is more than just talking about all things metaphysical. Okay. And let's go back to the whippersnipper scenario. All right. So, as the guy heads off into the sunset, if it was a real life physical person, I'd be saying, oh, by the way, can you leave your card just in case I have a problem? I might want to reconnect with you and ask you more questions. That'd be no issue. Well, it's kind of a bit like that with the crystal keeper. Okay. Just because you have connected with them and you're now using the crystal doesn't mean that you can't actually reconnect with them to get more information. Now, of course, we're not talking about things that are physically tangible. We're talking about the power of creative visualization. We're talking about intuition and feeling energy. And of course, you can actually draw on crystals to enhance your capacity to feel energy as well. There's a lot of stuff around for that kind of stuff. Now, what I can say is when we're building this relationship with the crystal keeper, your crystals take on new meaning to you. Okay. So this was one of the things that I noticed after doing my workshop was perhaps before I did the workshop, I kind of took my crystals for granted. And it's kind of bizarre in a way. After you've done this attunement process, it is like those crystals become a member of your family. I think you would need to try it to understand where I'm coming from, because I know it sounds eccentric, and unless you've done it, you probably think this is just way too out there. But the bottom line is you get a new respect for the crystals. Now, before I did the workshop, for example, and I still love crystals, I am almost obsessive about them, especially if they've got colours. But before I did my crystal attunement and workshops, I was actually a real collector and hoarder of them. And what I did was I actually changed my behavior after I started this process, which was respecting the fact that while there's no limitation on universal energy, there is limitations on the abundance of the universe. And because it takes many thousands of years to make these crystals, once we've depleted the resources, it's going to take thousands of years to make new ones. So they have limitation on them, their abundance. So I stopped being greedy. I stopped hoarding, if that makes sense to you. And I guess in that process, before I move on to the next slide, I developed a new sense of appreciation and value for what I had. Let me know how it worked for you. So I think the best way of explaining how to do something is actually to give a demonstration, which of course I can't really do. So I can just talk about how I approach it. So realistically, I'm doing the prep at the moment for creating the specific videos for you on each crystal. Like at the moment I'm looking at Amazonite. I don't know if that's going to be the first one that I load in regard to specific videos, but where I'm going with this is I'm putting together a lot of the content on their metaphysical properties, and in the process I've realized, actually, you know what, I haven't bought crystals for a long time, and I think it's actually now time for me to really take another look at my crystal collection and find any gaps. And one of the first things that came to mind, there's another crystal that I was looking at, which is staurolite and chiastolite, beautiful crystals. I'll talk about those when I do the specific videos. But when I was having a bit of a look, the first thing I noticed was that, actually, you know what, I'm probably overdue to buy another master healer. I think everybody's got a lifespan when it comes to the crystals. And so I was having a bit of a look online because, as I've said in the purchasing video, it's difficult to find a good supplier. And the reason why I've put these photographs up here is because you can see these are both called Master Healer Golden Quartz generators, and they are very different in their appearance. And frankly, they've both got their own beauty. You might not see it, I don't know. I can just about see these things in my mind. That one on the right, I envisage that if I receive that one, it's going to have a bit of a waxy texture to it. It's a gorgeous golden color. It's probably a little bit more orange than what it would be in real life because photographs are difficult. The one on the left, of course, though, is another very pretty one, and that's got more of the yellow and the gold and the browns. So that's probably more aligned with what I'm looking for because it's also got the white in it. I haven't decided if I'm going to buy either of these yet. The one that's on the right is actually being sold online overseas. Hope you can't hear my dog in the background. He's got his squeaky toy back. Thump, there he goes. Um, that was a bit of a distraction. I don't know if I'll re-record this. But anyway, moving on. The image on the left is one that's being sold within Australia. I may have to pause this video. And I will probably buy that one, but I haven't decided yet. I'm going to phone the supplier later on today. And the reason why I will probably buy the Australian one is because we've got consumer protections and I'm buying online and I'm not able to handle it myself and assess whether or not it feels right to me. Regardless, whichever one I buy, um, as soon as it has arrived, because I have selenite slabs, I'm going to put it on the selenite. That's my normal practice. They arrive, I cleanse and clear them, put them on the selenite slab, and then I will go back and attune them. And I won't always, just to be clear, I won't always do this attune to the crystal keeper. Sometimes, if it's a small one or a tumbled or whatever, I'll just chuck them onto the selenite slab. And when I'm ready, I will then go and use it. If it's jewelry items, I've got a selenite tower, so I will hang my jewelry onto the selenite tower until I'm ready to use them. As I say, I don't always do an attunement process. However, with something like this Master Healer generator, I actually will, because it's got a lot of purpose and function involved in it. I'm not going to talk about what the generator does right now because it will get too long. But this has got specific function attached to it, and I feel that it would be appropriate to connect with the Crystal Keeper for something like this. So I just want to make mention here before I actually get into the rest of it that when it comes to things like the fairy kingdom, the angel kingdom, there are people that struggle to come to terms with it. Me too. That was me to start with. The angels had to prove they existed, and this is for me, as did the fairies. So when we talk about fairies, I want to be very clear here. I am not talking about Tinkerbell. Okay. Now, when I did my angel videos, and you will be able to see there is an angel Ariel under her video. If you wanted to go and look at this one, we talk about the elementals, the earth elementals, which is basically the fairy kingdom. what some people call the fairy kingdom. So there, in the first instance, we should be learning through my conversation that this is about names, it's about labels, it's about terminology and descriptions. And so the fairy kingdom, obviously, people have been fascinated by that for, as long as people have been able to make films. We've got movies about fairies, and it's always very romanticized. And the Peter Pan movies with Tinkerbell and all the rest of it, they actually don't really do the fairy kingdom a lot of favors, shall we say, as far as helping us to embrace them as part of our lifestyle. They are spirit entities, if you accept that the fact that the human has a body, and when the body expires we become a spirit, but we can still communicate with spirit. Well, elementals such as the fairies, they are spirits too, but they have a smaller aura, right? They are not Tinkerbell. Look, I mean, you might do. I'm not 100% up on everything. My experience of interacting with fairies is that they're actually about 4 or 5 foot tall. Actually, no, probably more about 3 or 4 foot tall as far as the size of their aura goes, whereas the angelic aura is much higher. Now, I know there can be variations there as well with forms. But anyway, I'm just trying to put things into perspective, okay? I'll move on from this because I'm trying to make a point. Basically, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that the fairy kingdom, when we talk about labels and names, most cultures, certainly most of the indigenous cultures, do refer to what I call fairies in some way, shape, or form. So I know with the Aboriginal people of Australia that they also have what they call the earth elementals. And I heard an Aboriginal lady refer to them as the small men of the dust, okay? That they come from the earth, they spin around, they create a little whirly, if you like, and then they take almost a human shaped form, and it's possible to communicate with them. That would actually be a really interesting story for another video. I believe also Native Americans have their own elemental approaches or beliefs or whatever. And certainly because I'm Irish ethnic background, 6 generations Australian, an Irish person said to me many years ago that being Irish runs in your blood. It's cultural, because I started seeking out my cultural heritage, I don't know, maybe about 25 years ago. I had a lot of questions, and I had questions about the rainbow specifically. So the rainbow is actually associated with the fairy kingdom as well by the Irish definitions. Okay, so I'm just giving you a bit of by the by there. All right. So, a little background here about how I managed to, I guess, open my mind, or part of my own journey to the potential, if we like, of the Crystal Keeper and the Fairy Kingdom. So, you've probably heard this saying because it's very popular. We see it around: as above, so below. But you might not actually recognize what this means or what it's saying. It's got multiple interpretations anyway. But basically, it's saying that the structures we see on Earth, which could be managerial structures of organizations, there's always a hierarchy. You have the leaders, you have the workers, you have managers, and this kind of stuff, that it is reflected in the heavenly or celestial realms as well, that there is an order. So obviously, if we were talking about the angels, for example, the entity that sits above all the angels, of course, is Creator, or God, Goddess, whatever we want to call them. Then below the Creator, there are the designated spirits with authority and expertise to lead and direct the flow, if you like, of those that are further down the ladder. Now, to be clear here, um, as far as I understand, ego is not part of this. It's not like the humans, where you've got dog eat dog, where people want to get to the top of the food chain. This is more about the fact that the whole lot are focused on helping us to achieve our greatest potential and to live in accordance with divine will. This is certainly when we focus our intent to align with the divine highest energies and vibrations. Anyway, without me trying to explain it, because it could take too long, I found a book many years ago, and it's one I've had to buy a number of different times because I've lent it to people over the years. So I've actually bought it about 4 different times, because once a person reads it, even if it doesn't resonate, and this is what happened with me, the first time I read it, I was kind of like, oh, yeah, okay. Some of it seemed too out there for me, but parts of it resonated, and this is why I kept the book. And then I found that each time I read it, maybe every year or so, that more of it was relatable to me. I understood more, and I felt that there was a truth to it. So the background is that this particular book is written by a guy. You find it in the non-fiction section. Um, and it's about his journey and his soul's journey, if you like, as far as him writing about it, was triggered because it was written in World War II. I've got to say that, just after World War II. So the language of the book can be a bit intense. You might struggle with it if you're into simple wording or whatever. So if you do buy it, be prepared for the fact that it's olden day language, and the way he speaks, it's very reflective of the 1940s, and because his brother had been killed in World War II as a pilot. Now, he was an Englishman living in India at the time, and so he was going through that whole grief and questioning process of what he considered to be the unfairness of the world, that it was pointless, there was that whole waste of life, and all of this kind of stuff. And he asked a lot of questions. And so the book focuses on the fact that he's visited by a holy man who basically knocks on his door and says, "You've been asking questions. Well, let me tell you." And so he takes him on this journey, explaining to him the processes and the workings of the universe. And in it, he refers to the celestial realms, for want of a better description, and explains and breaks down this business of as above and so below, in what I consider to be, certainly once you've read it a couple of times, if you weren't open to it in the beginning, over a period of time, it starts to make more sense. But he explains the core essence of it is that on Earth, we don't have a problem with thinking, yeah, there's an animal kingdom. We've got birds, we've got mammals. What else have we got? We've got arachnids, we have fish, I can't remember what they're called, all of this kind of thing. There's different species associated with each particular lineage from this animal kingdom. And what he does is he draws a picture of the celestial kingdom and the lineages from that, of which humans are only one form. Angels are another line, as are the fairies or the elementals. But I don't think he calls them fairies, so that you know. I think he actually might refer to them as divas or something like that. But either way, if you've read this book, let me know your thoughts. If you haven't read it, or you've read something similar, please do make a comment. Let us know. For the people that are watching this video as well, if there is something that you've read that help you to come to terms with the fact, at the very least, even if you don't believe, but to have an open mind. So I've thrown in some images because I've been doing the AI just as a bit of fun, really. But within the context of this spiritual kingdom and the lineages, I'm really poor with my words today. Anybody would think English was not my first language. But either way, points I need to make is that gender is not relevant. It's only relevant to humans because um, the elementals, the angels, and that kind of stuff, they don't procreate. All right. They are spirits. We as human beings, we have physical form. And so we therefore need to procreate to create more human life for the souls to inhabit. So in the celestial kingdoms, while I've put these images here of male and female, they're a masculine energy or a feminine energy. They're not necessarily male, female per se, and they don't necessarily have wings either. Some may have a winged aura and some don't. And so when we connect with the crystal keeper, we're building that relationship with the crystal keeper and establishing, are they feminine, are they masculine? These images here, of course, are just little baby ones, if you like. I love there was an artist in Australia years ago who used to draw pictures of what we used to call gumnut babies, which I always love. And I also got into, I can't remember the name of the artist, for a long time I was into the flower fairies. I still love them. I actually did a lot of cross stitch with them. Now, spirit angels and elementals generally will manifest in ways that have meaning for us because we're interpreting it. So, we're only limited by our own imagination. This is where that comes in. So if you were trying to say connect with a crystal, I'm just putting some scenarios to here with, say, an aquamarine, which might be associated with dolphins or stuff like that. And then the keeper of the crystal might present as this soft, feminine, water based elemental. Fairies, or this fairy image here obviously reflects the night sky. Now, I picked this one because I actually was thinking of stars and meteorites. This is AI generated, of course, and you can never, ever, I must say, when you're using AI, you can never actually get what it is that you're trying to create. You end up using what you've got and hoping for the best. But what I was trying to create here was something that reflected the nights, because when we talk about some crystals, stars, meteorites, and that kind of stuff, you've got tektites, you've got moldavite, all of these types of crystals that were actually stars or meteorites that actually impacted on the earth, sprayed everywhere, and little bits of them we can now use for healing purposes. Tektite, for example, particularly Tibetan tektite, I think is really good for wearing when you're in. I used to wear it when I was working in human services with the people that were really, really struggling. I might as well say street people, addicts, that kind of thing. Um, I will talk about that more when I do a video on Tibetan tektite. But anyway, it's part of a meteorite. And so, therefore, you might find a masculine or feminine type, um, I don't know, starry type entity associated with it. So, keeping in this, let's have a bit of fun with art in the midst of all this. Let's do that. Okay. So, I've created a wizard there for wisdom. I've created an old woman for a sage. I've created the little musical elf there so that people can get an idea of, that musical elf impy type thing. That's probably more reflective of an Irish approach to fairies. Looks a little bit like a rascal. So then, of course, I've created this image here. This could be the Earth Grandmother Goddess type image. Over on the right hand side, you've got the, elegant, refined fairy. She might be about peace, harmony, or unity. You've got the gnome there. Now, gnomes generally are associated with abundance and being very slick and quick on their feet. So if you were trying to manifest prosperity and holding a crystal to do with prosperity, you might actually find that when you're trying to visualize, that you might actually see a gnome type spirit. Yeah. Of course, there's always green man or green woman, which of course I've got images of those up on these crystal videos. I wanted to reflect that. Then I've got that little starry one who I feel is quite pretty. I don't know what you think. And then I've created an ogre. Now, the ogre might actually be one about protection and strength and courage and things like that. It's all down to you, your comfort, and what you want to visualize. Now, the other thing is too that when you're connecting with the crystal keeper, you might not see something that has got any resemblance to human form. Let us know. I mean, because it's each to their own. It's very much an individual process. Either way, and regardless of how we visualize the keeper of the crystal, and we might not visualize them at all, it might simply be a feeling of energy and connection through the heart, okay, where you get like a warmth in your heart. What we're looking to do is build a relationship based on love and care by this connection and attunement process. Um, and I suppose fostering goodwill is probably a better way of explaining it. Um, Now, for those people that are concerned when we're talking about this, that this kind of ritual or activity is somehow not aligned with God or the Creator or however they practice their faith, just a reminder, when we do these activities, if you call upon your God first, okay, always call upon Creator, highest of highest, God of gods, something like that. However you phrase it, call upon them first before you do any type of energetic exercise, and you will not have to worry about anything like that and whether or not what you're doing is actually not in aligned or accordance with Creator will. Okay, so it's all about your intention as well. So, just to recap and reiterate, when we are attuning to the keeper of the crystal, we're doing an invocation. We are raising our personal vibration to the highest levels. We're aligning with divine will, and we're calling upon the Creator first. And we are attuning in such a way that we support full health and well-being for all parties involved, if you like. So um, this attunement is one of mutual high regard. And it's a ceremony. I like to approach it. So, this is my way of doing things, okay? And the way that I was taught. I approach it from a ceremonial perspective, and I will do things that are involved with ceremony and creating light. And a lot of the time, I think that when we're doing ceremony, we're actually preparing our psyche, our mind for the activity. So, I will do things like light a candle, burn some incense oil, energize the room to start with, and then I will take a meditative state. I will hold the pose, I will hold the crystal, and I am starting, or I start the process by opening up my chakras, including more specifically my heart chakra and the crown chakra. So we're drawing in light from the Creator through the crown chakra, bringing it down through our body, through the heart chakra, and sending love to the keeper of the crystal, love and high regard. And then we are choosing to be open through our visualization aspect, if that's what we're into, to get the messages from the keeper of the crystal and from the creator as part of attuning. Um, Now, what would I say to this? Just whenever you're going to do any of these type of activities, remember to put your psychic protection and boundaries on, because you're opening up to universal energy, and this is about feeling safe as well. So there is more that I could say to this, but I won't, because this is about ethical and responsible teaching from my perspective. It is something that I might discuss in a private consultation. But the other reminder that I would make to you is not everybody is open clairvoyantly to be able to see or hear, the clairaudience messages. For most people, when it comes to attunement, it is this inner knowing, this hunch. It's like once you've finished this process, and I've given you an example of how to do an invocation here. Once it's completed, you do your invocation, you sit there and you send this light through to the crystal keeper, and you're open to receive divine love and messages, and you might not see, feel, or hear anything at all, and that's okay. When you're ready, you put the crystal down and you walk away, and you come back to it later. But the other thing is, once you complete whatever activity you're doing, you close with thank you, gratitude. I give thanks for blessings seen or unseen. And then you just choose to rely on your intuition after that. You will feel guided and directed. Now, one thing that I will say, I can't remember now if I actually said this earlier, but for me, the process of actively engaging in these attunements to the keeper of the crystals is I have become more ethical and more responsible in how I purchase crystals, how I use them, and how I care for them. And I say that with this thing at the back of my head, that one, I have to finish off this video because obviously it's getting long. And the other thing is, I am feeling very compelled to actually put my crystals outside at the moment for a recharge. And this is, I have to approach it from a different aspect, because as I've mentioned in caring for crystals videos, there's things like birds will come and pinch them, and at the moment I've got this cheeky dog who does have a bad habit of moving things with his little lips. So I'm going to have to be careful where I put the crystals and how I put them out. So that's part of caring. But either way, I've become far more responsible since engaging in this kind of activity. So, programming a crystal is similar but different. And you could do both. You could do the attuning to the keeper of the crystal, and you could also program that crystal for use. But when we talk about programming, it really is about actually understanding and knowing the metaphysical properties of the crystals. So, for instance, how would I put this? Most people I know, including myself, did this before I knew about how to attune to the keeper of the crystal, would purchase a crystal for a specific purpose. Now, crystals have got multiple metaphysical properties. They can be used in many different ways. So you would basically usually know for what purpose you want to use it. So let's say blue lace agate is for attunement, actually, for attunement, for a communication. Okay. But it could be communication and making your verbal expression softer and more gentle or whatever. But you can also use blue lace agate to bring peace to yourself internally. So you might decide that it's not that you're a person that lacks internal peace, but that you could have your verbal communication enhanced, or it might be that you want to get better at written communication. And so, what you would do is you would program the crystal to carry the qualities that you want, and then you would either wear it, hold it, or whatever when you're actually drawing upon that energy. And this is a far more simple process, and it can actually be a lot less time consuming. Look, as I say, everything can be as long and as difficult as you want to make it. But the idea is that you would hold the crystal in your cupped hands and that you ask Divine Will to charge the crystal to work in the highest way possible and to program it for protection from any intrusive energies. And you do this by sending white light into it. Okay, so you would cup your hands around the crystals or the crystal that you're holding, bring the white light in through your crown, blow it out through your heart chakra, and then after you have held it for however long you feel drawn to hold it this way, you would then bring the crystal up to your mouth and blow 3 times on it, like a and you if you know anything about mindful breathing, that's what you would do onto it. A nice good breath 3 times. And this is called the awakening of the crystal. It's the breath of life, and it is the connection of you to the crystal energy. And we could call that the keeper of the crystal. Really, that's another way of doing it. Now, if you do Reiki, you could draw a Reiki symbol over the crystal as well as you go through this process. And whatever you're doing with it, once you finish the activity, always complete this, with a statement of gratitude, because we always give thanks in advance, because we know that when we have outlined in our purpose and intention to be of the highest vibration, the highest will, in alignment with the divine, the creator, this request will not go unanswered or unfulfilled. We will always receive the blessings of the universe when we are aligned with the universe creator. So let's use this image as an example of how we would program the intention for use of a crystal, right? In this image here, we've got obviously a variety of crystals. We've got rose quartz, purple amethyst, all the rest of it. But what I'm going to do is focus our attention right now upon the one that's not quite so pretty as the rest of them, because it's actually in its natural state. It appears to me, and it's always hard to tell 100% when looking at a photograph, but what I believe we're looking at here is what is called a white oco. It's a very small geode. It's white quartz, and within the center of it, you've got natural white points, or I think it's druzy when they're the little small things. But anyway, it's a little groshy looking because it's in its natural state. We call it a crystal in the rough, or I think it's called raw, is another one that we would refer to. And these are general terms. Other more specific terms towards this little white quartz is it's an oco. I know it as an oco, if it is what I believe it is, looking at it. And if it's an oco, its metaphysical properties include teeth and bone, right? It's got more than one specific property. So if somebody was suffering from dental issues, or perhaps suffering from a predisposition to fractures of the bones, perhaps an elderly person that's got quite fragile bones, they would benefit from the healing properties of the oco. But the other benefits of the oco, especially when it's a large cave and it's more white, is this affiliation with what we call the mother or the goddess or the nurturing. And you would draw upon the Occo if you were trying to heal perhaps mother issues from your childhood, things like that. So, what you would decide to do when programming your crystal is, am I going to work on the mother issues with this crystal, or am I working on the fragility of bones, or am I working on dental issues? And you would make that decision before you start the programming activity. And then once you've programmed the crystal for whatever it is that you're wanting to use it, then you could put that Occo under your pillow when you're sleeping at night. You might want to hold it when you're meditating. You might want to meditate with it at different times. Now, you wouldn't do it with an Occo because it's not really suitable for wearing, but another crystal you might use as a jewelry item, or you might put it on a pouch, in a pouch rather, and wear it on your body. Whatever, there's any number of ways you can use a crystal and gain the benefits from it. But the important thing is, after use, you've actually got to rest it and recharge it again. So if you were to sleep on it throughout the night, when you get up in the morning, you would want to put it, for me, this is how I would do it because I've got the selenite slabs. I would actually pick up the Occo before I head out to work in the morning, pop it on the slab, and allow it to recharge and be ready for the next night's sleep if I was going to use it for the next night, or just use it, leave it on the slab until I'm ready to use it again if I want to meditate. And then, as I mentioned on the other slide, every now and again I like to put them out overnight under the moonlight or the starlight, or sometimes I might put them in the garden bed. Now, specifically in regard to the Occo, I would not be putting it in the garden bed, and I would not be exposing it to water because it will just fall apart and break. So this is where that care factor and responsible caring for your crystals come from. If you want it to last, you've got to look after it the right way. So I hope that's given you a bit of insight there. So, my friends, with all of that said and done, that brings today's video to a close. Once again, I welcome and invite you all to leave your own thoughts, comments, feedback, tips, whatever. Everybody's got different ways of doing things, and it really is helpful for us to share information to grow from, especially when it comes to activities such as this. In the meantime, just a reminder, I will be starting the specific crystal related videos next week. As I said, I'm not sure which one I'm going to start with as far as uploading and publishing it, but we'll keep that as a surprise. I might make an announcement on Sunday. But in the meantime, do have a wonderful, blessed day, blessed week. Take care of yourself and catch you on the next video. Bye bye for now.